Hello, welcome back to another episode of CPaaSAA Talks. And this one is really special because I'm here today with the the marketing team, the extended marketing leadership team of Open Gateway CAMARA Linux Foundation. It's really great to have the three of you here. And we're going to talk about mobile world a little bit, look back at what it was and what happened and what's all happening in the world of Open Gateway and CAMARA and Linux Foundation. So welcome, Justin, Jill, and Marcus. Justin, I'm going to start with you because you are now, I think, the head of marketing for Open Gateway for about 5 months or so, and Barcelona was your big kickoff with the Open Gateway zone. How did it go? What do you think? Did you achieve all your objectives?
Yes, it's been a busy. Thank you, Rob. It's been a busy 5 months. I think it's fair to say, if you work in marketing and telecoms, never join a company just before Mobile World Congress. It's not a recipe for a good time. Mobile World Congress is always an amazing show, but I think this year with Open Gateway, it was phenomenal. We set very ambitious targets for what we wanted to do and showcase, and I think we smashed them. We had the Open Gateway Zone, which was our demo area. We wanted to showcase as many of the members and partners as possible, not forgetting by any stretch the other industry organizations like MEF, like Linux Foundation, CAMARA Project, CPaaSAA. It was really important that we were seen to collaborate with lots and lots of people. And we had 16 organizations leading the demos, and I think over 30 organizations in total involved in that demo program. So that was really significant. We had a DevCon, which we ran at the old Fira Montjuic, which had a very different feeling and vibe. It was very young. It was very dynamic. I felt quite old going over there, but some amazing speakers there. We saw Steve Wozniak speak, Gary Kasparov, and we had a really exciting Open Gateway DevCon, talking about some of the things that developers needed to know about the program. But probably the biggest thing to say, alongside the Glomos, which had a record number of submissions, and the Open Gateway Challenge was won by China Mobile this year. Alongside that, there was just a huge number of organizations talking about network APIs, network as a service, how they were using CAMARA APIs, how Open Gateway was infecting them. And it was really significant. We tried very hard to collate and understand everything that was going on, but it was a huge amount. In fact, there were over 45 press releases talking about network APIs, Open Gateway Initiative, etc., just in that very short period. So a really significant show.
Amazing. I felt personally it was really a technology show more than a telco show this year. So really good to see this all together. You've been part of CAMARA, leading CAMARA from the very start, I think. So you've seen this for a few years now. What was your impression also being part of the Open Gateway Zone, the CAMARA demos there?
So if you had a look on the website and also the website of the Talent Arena, the topic was not as prominent as the year before, but after the event now, I must say it's a good signal because it shows that we leave the pure innovation area and enter the commercial area. And Justin already told, we had so many demos and commercial use cases there, which is really great to see. And all are based on the CAMARA APIs. That is a really good confirmation that we are doing the right work.
Yeah, amazing. And Jill, from your perspective, you're with the Linux Foundation, and CAMARA is just one of your projects there. Linux Foundation is all about open networks, open standards, open source, open innovation. How do you expect? You weren't able to be in Barcelona with us in person, unfortunately, but what you saw from the outside, how did that make you feel?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with everything that both Justin and Markus said. It's really encouraging to see so much discussion and passion about network APIs continuing. And to Marcus's point, I think we've sort of hit that tipping point of awareness, and now we're into the innovation phase, the phase where people are starting to figure out how to monetize these APIs. So, that's definitely where we want to be. And that's, sort of our next challenge ahead is really getting to that inflection point. And we're not quite there yet. But I think from a more general standpoint about takeaways, just outside of the API space, AI was everywhere. Automating networks in various different capacities all across the stack and the ecosystem was huge. I don't think that took anybody by surprise. So that'll be an interesting space to watch. Also to see where AI impacts API development as well. That's, like I said, that's a growing area and one that people are trying to figure out how to embrace all around. So that's probably a whole other discussion, but definitely a takeaway this year.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's really interesting. I mean, we've at the C Acceleration Alliance, we've been dealing with APIs and the challenge of programming against APIs, of course, for many years. And it seems that AI is going to play a big role to sort of solve that, right? With the usage of API becoming much easier. You mentioned already the monetization, Jill. I think that's really, if we're now into 2025. Arguably, the supply side has been dealt with. I'm not going to finish. There's still a lot of work to do, but now we have a player like Aduna that's really going to do a lot of the heavy lifting on that side, and we have CAMARA that has a track record and continues to harmonize and specify the APIs. So really, I think it's now all about the commercialization. And that's really what we're trying to contribute with use case and best practice and bridging the telcos and the CPaaS players. So looking back at MWC, it is an open question for the three of you. Do you feel that we're making progress with new business models, revenue models, more awareness of how we can actually make money? Justin, you're nodding. You go first.
I am, and I think one of the sort of biggest insights I took away from MWC is we very firmly moved away from people talking about this as an innovation project, and we're seeing people commercializing the APIs. I think we've seen a huge rash of APIs being used very successfully in the anti-fraud space, but of course, every month it seems there are new CAMARA APIs that provide new capabilities, and some people are talking a lot about what they're going to do with network APIs. But I think what's most surprising is the number of operators have just taken those APIs and used them to create new, powerful revenue creating services. Is one of the things I took away, and you'll see things that have been powered by network APIs that you wouldn't have known that was even possible. And I think probably the example I wanted to take away was China Telecom, who had used a very simple API, the location API, to drive effectively a cab hailing application for the over 60s for people without smartphones that would turn a feature phone into a phone capable of doing the equivalent of an Uber or Lyft, using AI to make all the transactions voice activated. So you could literally order a cab by voice, which is ideal for people that are not technically savvy. Absolutely amazing in terms of the innovation and the simplicity, but probably more important was the fact it's just generating revenue left, right, and center. It's a really powerful application because it serves a need that people probably hadn't thought about. How do you give smartphone capability to people that don't use smartphones? It was a really good example of innovation.
And you, Markus, switching to you because you also have your Deutsche Telekom hat on every now and then. So you've been looking at use cases and monetization there. Can you reflect on that a little bit?
I would like to start first with my CAMARA hat. And as I'm from the beginning in this whole API topic since 2020, we had so many discussions and talks with customers, and at the end, they always ask, can I buy it? So there is a clear demand, but we could not answer it because we had to do our homework. And the good thing now we have the situation that we can deliver. So we have CAMARA for standardizing and creating the APIs. We have Open Gateway to standardize the exposure and also provide solutions for API exposure. And we have the aggregation piece by Aduna. So now, first time, we are really able to deliver aggregated APIs to the customer. And that's what's needed. And that's also a good thing. What was really visible, now we can really focus on customer and get in talks and create the best APIs for future. Changing my head now to Deutsche Telekom. We also had done an evaluation of the whole area. We think we also start in the fraud area. Fraud is a very good starting point. You see it in all the countries. The reason is it's technical, easy to do. There is a clear demand because we get more and more digital business and unfortunately also more and more digital fraud. And it's also easier from the data privacy and regulation part because we are easier to find compromises between usability and data privacy in this area. So it's a good starting point, but we are already looking in the next areas like location, which could be very interesting. So I saw an interesting use case about geofencing. So to warn people that other people come close to them was really great to see. We are in the past thought about more of logistic use cases. So when a truck reaches an area that a store can prepare the on and off loading, such kind of thing. So location will be a very big topic too. And then I think the third area will then be quality and demand. That will coming soon, I'm pretty sure.
Jill, anything to add from the, let's say, the global perspective of Linux Foundation also?
Yeah, I mean, I think now we're at a point where all of the pieces are there. The framework is now in place. And it's time for innovation. It's, the use case that Justin talked about, I think we're going to be seeing more and more of those on top of, the typical stuff that you would expect to see, like the anti-fraud and the geofencing and all of those. We have strong blueprints for those. So we'll probably definitely see more of an uptick in that sort of high demand use case. But then again, like I said, innovation, what I'm most excited about though is seeing what other ideas people come up with that weren't necessarily on our initial list of goals for, making all of this easier and more accessible to everyone.
Yeah, I'm also very excited about the new use case that people come up with. Also, when you look at when you're part of a hackathon, I was in the Orange Hackathon jury a couple months ago, and it's just crazy, right? And then people, if they're not constrained by the normal telco thinking, they come up with totally different use cases where you go, this is really interesting. And I think we need to have that much broader scope. So looking at the year ahead, it's now early 2025 that we're recording this. What are the top 3 challenges you think for the next year that we need to solve altogether as an industry, as an ecosystem?
Well, I'll take this one first. I think, things that we've already talked about, I think it's monetizing is one. People are starting to figure it out, but there's a lot of work to be done. Standardizing, I know that, we're setting these standards, but there's still different CSPs are implementing these APIs differently. And I think that still poses a bit of a challenge for developers. And then I think another challenge is, continuing to get in front of that audience that's not your typical telco. I know from a CAMARA standpoint, we are planning to be at a bunch of different events this year. Coming up in a couple of weeks, we're going to be at KubeCon. So we're really trying to get in front of those cloud developers and show them how they can leverage what we're offering to, continue to develop apps that are maybe outside the typical telco space, but still provide some value and benefit for what they're doing.
Okay, then let me go second.
Yeah.
We had a very nice reception at Tuesday evening in Barcelona with a lot of people. I was really overwhelmed how many people were there and which people. So it was really great. And on this event, I already told or shared my view, which are the 3 big challenges which are now in front of us. And the first one is to focus on the right APIs. So currently we have a lot of small, basic technical APIs in CAMARA, but that's not what the customer wants. So like the 15 fraud APIs what we have. In the end, the customer only has one question, and that is it fraud? Yes or no? And if yes, please tell me why you tell me that. That's the only thing. And we should focus on this bigger value and put all of our capabilities together and form these APIs. So the message is rather 5 good APIs than 50. Yeah. And that's one challenge what we have in front of us. The second one is about coverage. So the whole thing only will be accepted if you have a scale, and scale you get by coverage. So we have to approach operators and help them coming into the ecosystem. That is number 2. Number 3, that's all about data privacy and consent. The current solution is fine. It works for a single API. That's really fine. The question is it sufficient for a complete use case? It's from a usability point of view not good if there comes a pop-up every time you use a new API or a new functionality and the customer has to give his consent. That is a really bad user experience. We have to work on it and improve it. Like it is if you use an app on the phone, then you have to do it once at the beginning with all the necessary consent what you need, and that's done. So we have to go back and work on the solution that we get a better user experience for the consent. And that's for me the third challenge.
Great overview. Justin, anything to add? You don't have to create more problems for us, right? I mean, we have 6 already now.
No, I mean, there's a couple I think I'd add to that. I mean, I think one is, from a GSMA point of view, a big focus for us this year is about education and sharing best practice. It's making sure people are aware of some of the amazing use cases out there. And of course, tied in with that, you've got the certification, that whole approach to standardization. Part of the driver for this initiative is if you're a developer, you build something once and everybody can use it because you're using a standardized API that is certified as well. And so your app will work across every single market, and that's really powerful. We then have a job to then help people promote those stories, share their use cases, and make sure people realize you can make a lot of money out of network APIs by building something once and then selling it into every market because it's solving a real need. And I think the second thing linked to that is the work we're doing around our GSMA Fusion program, which is our demand side program. I think traditionally the telecoms industry has not been very good at listening to enterprise or industry and understanding their needs beyond the basic connectivity. And a lot of the Fusion program is about bringing certain industries back to the telco table and saying, these are the challenges we actually face that could be solved through advanced connectivity and APIs. And if you can solve those problems for us, then those are things that are really, really important to us and worth money to us and to you. So a big focus on that demand side Fusion program, bringing that in. I think that's where you get the win-win. You get operators generate new revenues through enterprise services, developers build new business models and business cases and gain money through building applications that address those needs. And of course, for the enterprise themselves, they have major business problems, real world business problems solved for them through the use of APIs. So I think there's a big focus on that demand side piece going forwards.
Sounds like we still have a lot of work to do. Looking
But it will be
ahead,
fun, Rob.
I know it will be fun. It's always fun, right? There has to be a challenge. Now, I think there is a lot happening, and I think AI. We touched on that a little bit. I think AI is going to accelerate also the usage of network APIs, just like regular CPaaS. So touched on. You mentioned one already, Jill. That's later, end of March, I think, right?
Mhm.
So then we're starting more of those events, or we're going to be working towards those events. We're starting to work towards our CASA 25 event in September, where we bring the telco space and the CPaaS space again together, and it will be. And I think also coming back to what was discussed earlier, I think this time we will not separate it so much. Last year we had one day for telcos and network APIs, and one day for, let's say, the CPaaS. I think we'll also be seeing in CASA 25 much more of a blend, because network APIs are really just a part of the whole ecosystem now.
Mhm.
So we'll do our bit to educate, also to evangelize towards the rest of the CPaaS and the contact center industry, with everything that's possible, and vice versa, I would say. And then I think, I mean, there's a bunch of events, I know, but then the big one, the next big one, I'm looking at you, Justin, is of course Mobile World in Las Vegas, towards the end of the year, right? And I imagine you're scheduling and planning already. Anything you can say about what that's going to look like for Open Gateway and CAMARA?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's Las Vegas, but we've also got Shanghai in June as well, which will be big for Greater China. And it was announced during MWC, so you're excused for not having seen the press release. But we also have MWC Doha taking place in November. So actually, we've got quite a few events taking place. I think a key part of all those will be sharing best practice and education. And the plan is to run some sort of developer-centric events at each of those, maybe DevCons, maybe hackathons. I think at MWC we had a hackathon sponsored by Nokia, which was exceptionally well received. They had a real challenge choosing the winning contestant, because the quality of the submissions was so good, and there was very close collaboration between all of the Spanish operators and the hackathon participants. So it was a really high quality event, and I think those sort of things are really interesting because you're absolutely right. They're the sort of things that bring out new use cases where people who aren't from the telco industry say, well, this is a problem I can solve with this capability, and they're not tied into sort of normal telco thinking. So it's a great way to see innovation and move things forward.
Sounds good. It sounds like we have something to do. Now, if we look ahead, final question. If we look towards Barcelona 26, what will success look like for you in Barcelona 2026? Jill, you want to go first?
Sure. I'd like to see a lot more deployments. Like we talked about, we've got the frameworks in place. Education is in a good spot. We're seeing all these cool things coming out of these hackathons. I'd like to see more and more CSPs actually deploying these CAMARA-based APIs into production and seeing some monetization out of it.
Sounds good. Markus, what does success look like for you?
It's quite simple. We want to see operators who can monetize the APIs and make revenues out of it. Mm-hmm. Very simple.
Very simple. Justin, same thing?
Yeah, I think it's the same thing. It's about, obviously people are very reluctant to talk about revenues, but actually talking about the business cases and the value that the APIs are delivering, I think more conversations that cover that will be really, really powerful, because I think it does feel very different from a lot of technologies in the telco space, in that it is very focused on creating those new revenue streams. And at the end of the day, that's what we're all interested in. It's about making money for all the players and solving real world business problems. And I think that will be a really good focus for next year.
Yeah, I think there's probably some organizations that are kind of sitting on the sidelines right now, taking a wait and see approach, kind of keeping their eye on the space to see if it's really worth them investing. And so when they see these other organizations making money out of it and talking about making money, I think that's going to be kind of a tipping point for them.
Yeah, and not external organizations, also a lot of people inside the operators. There is still a fraction who is not convinced. And the best argument is the revenue.
Yeah. Show me the money.
Show me the money.
Well, I think we'll know what to do then here for the next months. Keep working on it. It's been great working with the three of you so far on this, and I look forward to another exciting year. And see you all soon. Thank you for being here.
Yeah. Thank you, Rob.
You're welcome, Rob.